He is the Director of Startup, Developer, and Student Evangelism for Boston and New York. We're very honored to have him. He's a friend of Hult. He and others in his program have been with us on campus several times over the last few years, helping out with classes, speaking, helping out with Hult Prize, and we're just really honored to have him here this morning. Not only is he involved in Microsoft, he's also involved in nonprofits and giving back to the community. He's on the British American Business Council, and also he's a part of This I Believe in the Boston area. He's had a long-standing career really working with startups, consultancy, sales, IT sourcing and models and transitions, and we're really honored to have him here today to talk about evangelism. So thank you so much, sir.
I didn't recognize myself then. So first of all, who's excited to actually be at college and in higher ed and all that good stuff and reinvent your career?
Yes.
Right, thank you. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to just tell you my story today. And partly because when I was sitting in the bleachers at my university that I went to in the UK, a big part of kind of what I've become is giving back. And I think a big part of what I didn't necessarily have was some inspiration that I thought I could kind of share, but also benefit from. So I'll just give you the potted history of who I am, where I came from, my background, and take from it whatever you want. And at the end, I'll answer any question around where I've been, what I've done, what I've seen, and we'll take it from there. So, quick snapshot. That's my title. I think it's kind of a groovy one. And that, I know you're looking at the shirt and thinking, what did his mother do with him? That's me when I was like 4. And I put that up there because I didn't know anything back then. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a regular 4-year-old. I was actually probably pretty nervous about getting a picture taken. But I run evangelism, and I run evangelism for basically Microsoft in the Maine, Vermont, right the way down to Manhattan and New Jersey environment, which is all of the kind of key markets for us. In fact, what that really covers is for us the second and third busiest startup market in the world, right? Which is obviously Boston and New York. And obviously you've got Silicon Valley and Los Angeles and obviously they're doing more as well. Anyway, did he say evangelist? Yes, I did. So what is an evangelist? I'm figuring that out. So basically, as you'll find out with professional careers, there are no written rules anymore in terms of what a professional career is. I think it's fundamentally changed over the course of time, but eventually the term evangelism within Microsoft, it's not this. It's what it's about, it's just telling stories. It's basically helping people understand what we do, how we do it, what we're trying to do, and evolve it from there. So, take a step back, where am I from? As you can tell by my accent, it's not South Boston. I'm originally from Newcastle upon Tyne, which is up in the northeast of England, just south of Scotland. Famous for ships, famous for coal, famous for beer. It's actually one of the best-selling beers in the world. And famous for bridges. So the Tyne Bridge was a precursor to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So it's a very industrial, heavy engineering city. And obviously what that then translates into were the careers and the kind of manufacturing ecosystem that existed when I went to school. So, what did I do at school? So the picture on the top left is my nursery school, Ashfield, still around. The picture on the bottom left, I know it looks like a prison system, but that was my comprehensive school. And actually the reason the stuff's on the roof was you'd be allowed to go and play football or soccer up on the roof, and that was to stop the ball going over, which it did often, which meant you had to run downstairs into the yard and pick it up again. But check out the cars, that's now gone, it's now a housing estate. This great building here is my comprehensive school, Reedwood, and that was where I left. In the UK you can leave school at 16. I decided to leave school at 16 because I didn't really see a professional opportunity for me at the end of it. And actually at 16, when I reflect on it, that was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made. And the reason I did that was, I just hand on heart didn't feel like I was ready to go and work. I just, frankly, I was doing well. In fact, to give you a feel for how well I performed, there were 135 kids in my cohort, right? In the United Kingdom, we did what's called an ordinary level exam. It's called an O-level. There were 22 of those passed. I got 8 of them. Another friend of mine got the other 8, and the rest were spread amongst the students. And at that time, it was a tough time to be a student in the UK And that's why I took the decision. I said, I'm not going to try and go into college. So I took some time out. So at 16, I left and I went to work for a bank. The house on the top right is Fairley House, and I was lucky enough as a kid to grow up. That's not my house, by the way. But I was lucky enough that my father in Scotland, his grandparents lived, they were, my grandmother was a silver maid, which meant she used to look after the silverware in a mansion house. And her husband was a gardener. So very, very humble roots in terms of where we came from. But that was the house where we kind of go and spend some summers, or actually the lodge house. But it was a little bit of a like, wow, this is kind of cool moment. And it sowed a seed. And that's what I want you to feel and remember is it sowed that seed of, this is really beautiful, I love it. So where did I go on to? I started working. I started off by going to Lloyds Bank, which is one of the big banks in Britain. I joined a youth training scheme, which was a government scheme. I got paid £27.50 a week, which is about $40 for so I was basically paid about £1 an hour. And what it got me into was the working world. I then, sorry, these things automatically advance. I then went to the top left, which is the Department of Social Security. As you can tell, it's a massive, massive complex. There were 13,000 people worked in that complex. And that arrow was the room where I worked, 131C. 131C was the mail room. First day of work, they all got dropped off in sequence, and there I am, getting dropped off at the mail room. And it was no disrespect to the role itself, but I thought, this is not going to be forever. And it wasn't. I then took a couple of different roles. I became a police officer in London, and I was in the Met Police. And it was a short-lived experience. I did a couple of different bits and pieces amongst that. But I found out then that I had Crohn's disease. And I tell you that because it came out of the blue. It was this life event, total surprise. I had just joined the Met, was going through training, was in one of those lines, an incredible career ahead. And all of a sudden, this bolt of lightning hit me from nowhere. And I was completely fine. But the Met Police took the line that it could be potentially stress-related, and therefore you'll have to take a break for 2 years. So therefore you've got to leave. So now, my world upside down. I had to reapply for the job that I had just left, something like 15 weeks prior, to get reinstated. And in the interim, I had to take a job at Clousden Hill gas station, because it was the only job I could get. Remember, I'm from the northeast of England, I've got no professional qualifications, and I am literally hanging out to dry. So I took a job there, and I thought, you know what, we'll just get on with it as I go through the reinstatement. What I did then was, and talk about learning, I don't know if anyone's worked in a gas station. Anyone worked in a gas station before? Yeah? So the reason why I tell you this lesson is, working at a gas station, it taught me a couple of different things. Number one, I read a lot. So in between people come to fill the stuff, and it was a temporary role, probably about maybe 11, 12 months. What I saw was all different facets of human behaviour. And what I mean by that is, people would come in, they'd throw money at you, everyone come, hey, where are you from, what are you doing? So people taking an interest in what you were doing, right the way across to people treating you frankly with a lot of disrespect. What it taught me was to actually realise that people in all different jobs need some recognition for what they do, and treat others with respect, treat others as you want to be treated yourself. I read a book about Gandhi. This is a brilliant book, by the way, if you get a chance and you're into biographies, get it, read it, and absorb it. It's written by a guy called Louis Fisher. And what it taught me to think around was, how much do I really need? What do I really want to get? And then ultimately, what's the end in mind that I'm driving to? Like, what the hell do I want to do with my life? And if you can imagine, I've gone to the top of being in the Met. For me, it was the top. Then I've come to work in a gas station. And what am I doing? And then I realised I needed I needed to get my act together in terms of professional training, and then hit the reset switch. The other guy that I was inspired by was a guy called John Ruskin. So John Ruskin was the person who really was the brainchild behind social welfare in the United Kingdom. He's also an incredibly talented artist. He was at Oxford, he taught at Oxford. But he came up with a saying that said, the greatest reward for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what you become by it. And that kind of jarred me, it sort of resonated with me in terms of what do I sort of want to get from what I'm doing? And it got me thinking. Oops. So I went to college. So I applied, I had an interest in German, and this was a real challenge for me. I taught myself how to speak German. I'd always been interested, but it wasn't offered at school, and I pushed myself and taught myself rudimentary German, rudimentary conversational, but also business. And I then took an exam, I got an A, and I thought, actually, you know what, maybe you're not that bad overall. So I ended up going to Bradford College. I went to Bradford because they were the only college in Britain that did German and business at the level that I wanted to do it. And of course, I went there as a mature student at the ripe old age of 22, and I laughed because when I turned up, everybody thought I was super old. But what I really did was give myself a second chance. I finished dead top of the program because I was inspired, I was fired up. And that also led me to really live out the fact that you only really know how tall the mountain is when you've been on the bottom of it. You know, when you've been on the valley floor, you can see how much you want to climb, and it just gives you that, what have I got to do and work on to make something happen. So I went from Bradford College, which is in the middle of England. I went to Leeds Metropolitan University, so that's Bradford there, that's Leeds Met. And the very first day when we went to Leeds, the head of the school said nobody in this program's ever got a first. It was a room like this, 130, 140 students. And Leslie Whittaker, and I love Leslie to bits, said nobody's ever got a first class honours degree. So first class honours is GPA 4, dead on 4. It's top as top you can get. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, you can't really say that and get away with it. I'm going to go after this one. And you know, all the other students were there. And it was a great university. Leeds Met is a really good college. But what I started to do was, you know, if we get out at night, this thing here, there was this symbol of Leeds Met, which was the owl. And of course, coming back from the pub at night, you know, one beer too many, I would look at this thing and go, you know what, you owe me something. And I really was, I don't know what it was, by Leslie saying you can't do this, I really wanted it. I wanted to prove, like, you know, I think I probably can give it a shot. So that made me really think around how I wanted to engage on college, not just attend the course, but how I wanted to attend the course. And a lot of that kind of thinking on, what am I doing, why am I doing it, what's the end in mind that I've got from each and every course, but even more than that, each and every class. What do I want to get out of this? And I was, and still to this day, I'm the only person who got a first class honours degree in that programme. And I got that, and I'll be honest with you, I got how we get results in the UK was we had to walk into a big board and all of the students' names were up there. And I cried, because I realised, I thought I'd gone through this wave of reinvention, and I just felt this massive wave of relief come off my shoulders in terms of what I thought I could then do. And for me then, I thought, you know what, you're on a track here, you can do something with it. What it also taught me was to develop relationships, you know, to work with people, to really sort of think about what my parents had done for me as well. So this is me and my dad. Every year, for the last 11 years, we play a golf tournament. He's now 76 and he still wins. I think I've won it 3 times, he's one of the rest. So I'm not that good at golf. But it's not about that, it's about the fact that, about April time, you know, the jokes start and, you know, can you give me some grief about how good he is and he's retired, all that rubbish. But the thing is, we've developed this nurturing relationship now, and what I carry from this relationship, I also carry into my professional environment, right? Also, what I started to do was be inspired by people like Steve Covey. Who's heard of Stephen Covey? Right, I'd really encourage you to read this book, or get the tape and just listen to it again and again and again. And I'll tell you the reason why. There are lessons as you go through your professional career, experiences that you have, like some of the ones that I've just shared with you, that are going to shape and temper who you are, what you do, how you interact with people. And there's a great story in this around the subway system, where what he realizes and what he learns is empathy. And empathy and the ability to appreciate what others are going through, to understand where they're at. I can't tell you how much of a professional trait that actually really is. You know, the ability to sit in a board meeting, the ability to kind of sit in a budget review, and really understand what everybody else is going on around the table, what they're trying to drive toward, why, what's motivating them. This is an incredible text. So where have I gone? So obviously from Clousden Hill gas station, I graduated, I got a job with ICL. ICL is, they're the British version of IBM, or they were. They were acquired by a company called Fujitsu. I was there for 13 years. I joined as a graduate. I joined in a job that I had no idea about, which was bid designs. These were designing proposals for big deals that we were going after. And from there, it was trial by fire. I mean, I literally grew fast, learned fast, picked up some selling skills, had a really great time. On the graduate program, we had to basically represent what we would do as a project. And the project that I advocated was to actually build a business for outsourcing in Germany. Right? Spoke German, had some good connections, I did some networking with the German operations. And the managing director was at the presentation when we all gave the debrief on what we were talking about, the business cases. And he basically said, I'm going to give you £200,000 and I want you to go make it happen. Because he had control for Europe. And I was sort of at that moment of, well, I didn't say I could do it. But then you're on the spot now. So what I did was I moved to Düsseldorf in Germany. My wife moved with me, we were newlywed. And I went to build a business at the ripe old age of 26 for the German operation. It was about £150 million, probably $300 million, $280 million business unit at that stage. And here I am, fresh out of college, talking to the German managing director about what I think I could probably do in Germany. Incredible experience. And that led me to a couple of deals that got me to the US. I came to Dallas, Texas to build a consultancy business for Fujitsu at that point. I then moved from Dallas to New England, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, home-based, and picked up a bunch of different opportunities along the way. So I ran a consultant business, I did the outsourced design stuff. I then went to work for caption, which is where I sold outsourcing, big, large, 100 million plus deals that we'd go on to sell and then run and deliver. And then I got headhunted by Microsoft. And in between all of that, I was on the boards of This I Believe, which is a non-profit, because I wanted some board experience in terms of what makes a company tick right across the board at a strategic level. And also on the board of the British American Business Council of New England, which is obviously based in Boston. And in Microsoft, I came and joined as a seller, so I was there to sell platforms, and really I was looking for a life change. I mean, I was probably working about 90 hours a week at CAP, great company, enjoyed the international experience. I had operations in Poland, in India, in the UK and the US, but I was ready for a change, and I just kind of felt like I needed something new. So then I came to Microsoft. I had a job selling platforms around the Microsoft Technology Center in Cambridge, and then I ended up with this role that I've got now. So, where did that lead? So in year one, in terms of what I'd kind of tempered myself to be, this is me, you can't really see it, but there's basically every year Microsoft has a kickoff. I basically finished in the top 1% globally in the role that I had, and that's me on stage with the top 300 people out of 120,000 receiving special honours awards. And it's not to be showy. I'm generally quite embarrassed by stuff like that. But I tell you that because I've gone from the point of, like, you know, the whole world sort of fell apart for me professionally to a point where I reinvent myself in a relatively short space of time. But the real core is, you know, the relationships, family. That's my son, back in Newcastle, and, you know, feeling generally in a great space. You know, like I'm doing some good stuff here and I feel good about it. Right, let's pivot and I'll give you some lessons at the end. In a nutshell, Microsoft. It's probably the most incredible firm I've worked for. And I'm not just saying that, I really genuinely mean it. This is the sort of company that's been in business now for 41 years, as a tech business, has never made a loss. So which companies can actually say that? And in terms of the products and where we're at, and I look around and I'm kind of nervous to ask the question, but I know you've all got Apple devices and Droids and all that good stuff. And that's totally cool. And the reason I say that is, what we've adapted is, if you think of it like a professional career, we've had to adapt what we offer to fit the market. So we know that we're not leading the game in mobile devices. That's totally fine. But then you ask yourself, how come when we put Office in the App Store, does it become the top 1, 2, and 3 apps within a day? Right? So what we realise is there's certain plays that we have, and what we've done is we've adapted what we do to fit the market. And Office is one of them. Office for mobile devices is one of them. So we know we're not going to sell handsets. Yes, we've got a phone business, but it's more about the application, the experience that we think we can have. Things like cloud as well, in terms of Windows Azure. We only started reporting that out as a separate business unit in October-ish last year, and it basically in a 3-month period went to a $5.9 billion business. It's now up and over, I believe, 10, 11, the last report. And what I will tell you is the evolution of that business alone, and remember that I used to sell outsourcing services at Capgemini, has gone from nothing to basically this incredibly powerful business. You know, and I think Amazon will be here also. If you think about Amazon as a business also, I mean, these businesses have come from literally nowhere to be massive game changers in terms of how people operate. You know, everything now is cloud-based. Everything is as a service. People rarely take a CD and that's how you update life. It doesn't happen anymore. Everything is run as a service and we've evolved to that. But what I'm really interested in, and if I had our full product set up here, basically you wouldn't be able to read it. What I've done is simplify it down. But what I also want to share with you are things around what we do from an innovation perspective. Innovation within our firm is probably, I would say, the single and most strategic agenda item that we have. And what I mean by that is, I got asked a question at a different college, where do you think Microsoft will be in 10 years? And I kind of really struggled to answer the question. And the reason I did that is, tech has changed so much in such a short pace of time, that actually I could probably go as far to say in a decade from now, tech could be, you know, us jumping in a driverless car, and basically, you know, Uber as a model is completely a driverless experience. I mean, how mind-bending is that? It's incredible. But the reality is we're all sitting here thinking, actually, that's probably possible, right? If you look at kind of where tech and things are going. Where I think where our business is headed is if you think about things like HoloLens. Who's heard of HoloLens? You know what HoloLens is? So HoloLens is an augmented reality platform. And what it basically means is I can wear a cool pair of shades and I can basically have a conversation with somebody who's virtually sitting there, and I can see them in as clear detail as you're sitting here right now. It's absolutely incredible the experience you have. And my team actually leads the go-to-market around some of this in terms of the evangelizing around it. If you haven't seen it already, go on YouTube and have a look at holoportation. Just put in the term holoportation and have a think about what that means for a business model. And when I say that, you know, when I travel, I call my son and, hey, what you doing, what's going on. When you see this video, have a look at how that phone call is transformed through holoportation. And what it really means is that I can have the conversation with Finn, and we're chatting. I can see an augmented version of my son in real time there. It's a bit like the Star Wars part, you know, where Princess Leia's talking to it's a bit like that. But I can then replay that and sit and watch that conversation and shrink it down and stick it on the desk in 3D, and I can walk around it. That's where I think things are headed in turn. It's absolutely mind-bending. Go and watch it. But the reason I tell you to do that is think about it in the context of what it means for a business. You know, if you're designing a building, if you're designing a jet, if you're doing a landscape design business, if you're putting some furnishings into a house, you know, if you're NASA trying to plan the next mission to Mars, all of that good stuff. Brilliant firm, I'll leave it at that. I mean, we're headed in so many different directions, it would take a day to cover them all, but it's an incredible, incredible organisation. So let me just give you some food for thought. Tons of different options career-wise for you. Super exciting. I'll tell you, you've got the world ahead of you. It's absolutely incredible time. You should genuinely be pumped up about it. Let me give you some food for thought. And these are things that I've learned over the course of time also. You can choose to ignore all of this, you can choose to take it all on board, some of it, it's entirely up to you. Get a network, not a need work. Network like crazy. Get out there and go to meetup groups. Anyone, meetup.com? You familiar with meetup.com? Hold your hands up. Who's got a LinkedIn profile? How many contacts you got on average? Keep your hands up. How many have got more than 500? 300? Yeah. So you're doing a good start. Keep it up, because the reality is the networks are going to be some of the bridges to the next roles that you have, right? And I talk about meetup groups because meetups in Boston, prolific, there's tons of them. and they're great opportunities for you to kind of get in the community and just get out there and connect. And there are also lots of specialist groups in terms of career backgrounds and interests, whether it's healthcare, tech, you name it, phenomenal. And there's millions of them here in Boston. I think there's like 3,000 meetup groups. The next one is develop some presentation skills. Mine aren't the best, I work on them all the time, but just figure out what your style is, rhythm, how you engage with people, and practice it. Just get out there and practice a lot. And actually at the meetup groups, go and offer to give a talk. Give a talk on something that you know you're a specialist at, or you feel that you've got some contribution to give back to the community, and get up there and go do it. Take a risk. The next is develop soft skills. And what I mean by this is, when you go grab a cup of coffee, just listen. You know, interact, ask questions, get to know people, go socialize. It's such an important workplace, professional workplace environment. And the reason I joined some of the boards was I actually just didn't feel like I had that sort of acumen at a board level that I really wanted to have. And a lot of that was soft skills development, which I picked up over the course of time. I mean, sure enough, as a police officer, you're taught a different set of soft skills. But the reality is to take those soft skills to an enterprise, it's a bit of a difference, as you can imagine. The next is work together. Sometimes you can be very driven on what your objective is, but the reality is in a workplace, it doesn't matter which firm you work for, or if you've got a startup business, you really need to figure out how to work with a team, and you really need to figure out like when it's not working, how you deal with it, how you do conflict resolution, how you actually work through some of the bumps in the road that you have. Working together is probably one of the single most important traits that I think you can develop, because if you haven't got it nailed down, you're going to really struggle. And sure enough, in the project team that you have, it's great work experience for you. But just be conscious of working together and what it can actually help you do. And the last one's write stuff down. You know, we're so fast right now. Everyone's got a mobile phone. Everyone's got a mobile device here. You know, we're on Twitter, we're on this, we're on that. Write some stuff down, and I'll tell you the reason why is psychologically, when you commit pen or pen stylus to tablet, you change the interaction that you have with information. Subliminally, you absorb it differently. You make a commitment, a subconscious commitment to that learning right there and then. So if it's important, write some stuff down, commit to it. The last thing I've got then is, it doesn't matter where it takes you. You've got a great life ahead of you. Go off and express some ideas, get creative. It's up to you to go and get the results you're looking for. I had no clue if somebody had said back to me, where do you think you'll be 20 years from now? And I graduated actually 22 years ago. I had no clue on where I was headed after that. But what I realized was I was determined to kind of get up, and you know, I knew where the mountain was that I wanted to get to. And I had sufficient energy and drive to get off there and go do it. And I created my own results. And you know, I sit back here now and could I be more? Maybe. Do I want to be more? No, not really. I'm quite happy with what I'm doing right now. But I also think the most important thing is, it's important to give back. It's important to give something back, because people have, over the course of time, given back to me. Maybe consciously, maybe unconsciously, other stuff. And with that, that's it. So there's a lot of stuff there. I'll answer any questions you've got around where I am or what I've done. Wow. Come on. I'm going to start picking people out, yeah. What was your name?
Jared Fox.
Jared?
I think you're involved with a lot of big data and a lot of startups. Is that what you do with your own?
Yeah, I would say big data is one of the key themes. Data and analytics all up. If you go again to Meetup, look at the groups that are there and the membership counts that are there. But I would say right now there's not an organization that we don't interact with, or a startup entity that doesn't have a business wrapped around big data. I'll give you a good example. Last night there was a presentation by a startup at a university called Exercetus, and they basically do unmanned sub-sea vehicles. And what they realized with the manufacturing of these things is one thing, but the data coming from it was really where they were going to make their money. And that's pretty common in a lot of businesses. Yeah, so yeah.
My name is Nur. I come from Indonesia. I want to ask about leadership and how you to make a culture in your based on experience.
market. So the question was around leadership style and what sort of contribution that I want to have and what's the sort of team that I want to work with. I would tell you I learned a very important lesson when I took on the role at the MTC, in that I understood one view on how that was operating and the perception in the business on how it was operating. And I came in with a leadership style that I think was probably, I didn't seek first to understand, then to be understood. Right? And I used those as reminders. The leadership style that I wanted was, I was looking for a team that was engaged, energetic, really looking to change the way they did stuff, because there was a little bit of the feel that it was the same experience for customers. And I had one perspective on how that was going to change, with some performance management issues. So there were some performance issues that I had to manage as well. And I went too fast. I tried to create change too quickly without really understanding some of the rationale behind why the MTC delivered what it did when it did. So the rate of pace of change that you come into an environment, when you leave here you can have some great ideas and you'll want to change the world. I didn't take enough pause to weigh up the situation to determine where things are at. And in Microsoft every year we have what we call MS Poll. MS Poll is the employees give 360 feedback on where their careers are at, where their business is at, what Microsoft's done for them, all that good stuff. And that was reflected in the poll. The learning for me then going forward was I really wanted to have, when I weighed up the individuals in a team, and like the team I've got now, I've got 9 people that work for me in 2 major cities, is that I want to kind of see from them where if there's a problem or if there's some lack of progress, they can take ownership and self-initiate change themselves without me feeling like I'm driving it to them. Because what I will tell you is when that feeling happens, people do respond well to it. So I'm looking for that kind of self-motivated, I'm quite prepared to sacrifice some skills as long as people are really fired up and energetic about what they want to do. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Colombia.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you what elements of the culture and leadership in Microsoft do you think has a positive impact in the customer experience?
Brilliant question. So, did anyone get the question? There was what aspects of the culture within Microsoft drive a positive customer experience? Microsoft is, I think, one of the leading companies in the world around diversity and inclusion. And what I mean by that is 50% of my team is female, and all from different backgrounds, and from different parts of the world. And what I get from that, and I'm saying I, and then the kind of Microsoft is, I get a bunch of different ideas that have different perspectives that make what we do much different. What I like about it is that I'm actually measured as a manager on the diversity that we have within the team. I cannot, as an example, run into what we call an interview loop unless I've got a balanced loop structure. And what loop structure is basically we'll narrow it down to 4 good candidates, and then we'll interview them on rotation with 4 managers to interview and get a feel for where they're at. Diversity built into that culturally really helps with kind of the candidates that we look for. And more importantly, really balances out where we actually see candidates to begin with. And I like that. I like the fact that we really have to think around the dynamic that we're going to put into a team. Because customers see that. In fact, we get asked quite frequently around diversity and inclusion policy as it relates to other companies that we work with. And these are customers as well as people who are on similar panels or boards and so forth. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ray from Venezuela. And you mentioned a little bit about the mobile business.
Yeah.
And I would like you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because it feels like Microsoft is being left behind against major competitors. And you acquired Nokia several years ago.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit what is Microsoft doing in that line of business? Where are you guys going?
Yeah. So the question was where we bought Nokia, $7 billion acquisition. We're still lagging, all that good stuff. And you're right, we are. So in the market, Android #1 in terms of market share, Apple with iOS is the Apple operating system, and then the Windows platform for mobile on the Windows Phone, and BlackBerry and Amazon and a bunch of other folks after that. We're a prominent third in the market, but I think we've got like 3-4% of the market right now. The strategy we had within Microsoft was cloud first, mobile first. Now mobile is not only the handheld unit that you have on your person, but it's also tablets and stuff like that. Where we elected to go was not necessarily go and win the handset market, right? So we've come up with some pretty creative handsets, but the reality is it's more the experience that you want to have. You know, what apps do I use? What do I do for a job, and how do I want to interact? And I think our strategy is really more around what we're doing from an application perspective, which is why when Satya Nadella, who's our new chief executive, took over from Steve Ballmer, I think it was within probably 6 weeks. Basically what happened was we released the Office 365 apps to iOS. Right? So we put them in the Apple Store, which, as much as I love Ballmer, and he's a rock star, by the way, if you ever get a chance to see him speak, he's brilliant. But what it really was a shift in market stance to say, you know what, we know where the market's gone, and we need to modify our portfolio to fit the market. And that was a stance toward it. And I think you'll see more and more of that. The same for Droid, by the way. So we've now obviously released Office for Droid, for Android. And what that's really saying is, we don't necessarily need to have the physical form factor to be able to offer what we're doing, because the reality is we make revenue clearly from selling Office to other environments. And that's been how we handle it. Yeah.
Hi, Marshall from India. My question is more on the cloud platform.
Yeah.
Where you see Microsoft coming in from the Toyota Connected, the modularity where it's high, 5 years down the line, how does this change the car industry or the industry?
All right, so the question was, how does cloud, and Microsoft's platform is called Azure, for anyone who doesn't know, and how's that going to change the automotive industry all up? I think driverless cars, they're inevitable. It's going to happen. In fact, if you look at a Tesla, did anyone see the news on Tesla yesterday, by the way? So one of my colleagues stood in line at the Tesla store in Minneapolis, put $1,000 down to get the 35, is it 35? The next new model, 35 grand, whatever it is, the Tesla X. And within that, of course, there's some driverless kind of features in it. Cloud and the data that you have to interact with a car, it's going to happen. I think in terms of what we're doing with people like Volvo, some of the other major manufacturers, I mean, it's kind of a two-horse race. Cloud is a two-horse race in some respects right now. I think Amazon clearly have a good share and a good offering, right? And I think we are, if I look at kind of the spend that we have in that space, we spend $15 billion on building out the data center fabric that we have around the world. So we've got 22 data centers that provide cloud services around the world for various reasons, to various verticals. Automotive, clearly obviously is one of them. How cloud, I think, is going to enable that is, we will all no longer be saving stuff to drives, we'll be saving stuff to cloud services. I think in the automotive space, the telemetry coming out of cars, is going to obviously reside cloud-based. And I think connectivity in a mobile setting from a car will be as easy as making a phone call from your mobile device. What it looks like ultimately from a design standpoint, I'm not that close to that vertical. I can certainly connect with you and get some different insights, but it's going to be prolific. I mean, the services coming off it are, I think, yet to be designed. Yeah.
And Soledad from Argentina.
Yeah.
You mentioned that one of your biggest learnings was that people need to be recognized.
Yeah.
And I would like to know how to do that on a daily basis and what's the best way to recognize your team.
So the question was, how do you recognize your team and how often? Probably not enough. I don't recognize them enough. I'm quite a driven guy, and if I'm honest about it, I have one-to-ones on a bi-weekly basis with all my team for 30 minutes. Pre-scheduled. So what I try to do is get a pulse on where they're at. Recognition for me, and I was actually in Poland, that was one thing that I was actually praised for. You know, they said, you know, my manager, I think the question is, does your manager frequently tell you about the value you're adding? And I think 80% of the team said yes, but 20% said no. So that's basically 2 people on the team think, and not that it was no, but just not frequently. And what I try to do is on the calls, I'm trying to listen for what people have done, and then replay that back to what we have, which is a scorecard. So our scorecard tells us the areas of focus that we have as a business. And what I try to do is give them some structured feedback on what they've done well, what I think they've done well, but also what the rest of the business feedback-wise is, so that they're aware of it. The other thing is, honestly, once in a while, celebrate their birthday, recognise the fact that they're about to have a child, take them out of the pub once in a while and have a beer and catch up on where they're at in life. It's life stuff. It's more about the connection. I try to just have a connection. Does it work with everybody? No. Because part of the reading of people is some people don't want that connection. Some people want a very structured manager, employee sort of relationship, and you've got to know when to read that. And so therefore I don't have one size fits all. What I do is I try to kind of get a gauge on what's important to them and then reflect back on that as and when I get an opportunity to. What I would also tell you though is praise is important, but feedback's a gift. And feedback also enables them to grow as well. And what I've had to spend a lot of time on is helping them see that I know you think you're doing a fantastic job in this community, but there's some feedback I need to give you. And what that really is also is praise for the good stuff they've done, but also the stuff that they can kind of work on. So. Yeah?
Hi, I'm Joseph from Oxford. From your point of view, what makes a candidate outstanding or special when it comes to applying for a job at Microsoft?
All right, so the question was what makes a candidate special or stand out? Last year I must have interviewed about 120 people. And again, they're in that 4-person loop sort of structure. For me, it's less about what's on the resume. It's more about the candidate. And don't get me wrong, that's clearly important. But you've got to understand that resumes are looked at as the very best representation of what you've done. And then, of course, some of the bits and pieces that you know in your heart of hearts may or may not be right on the money. The difference, though, is when you're actually talking to somebody in an interview, and they're taking you through the stories of what they've done, how they've done it, you give them context. It's the experience and the stories and how they take you through it that's important for me. So I could probably tell you out of maybe, I would say 20 hiring recommendations that I did last year. On paper, it wasn't the most experienced person that got the job. It was somebody with a lot of energy and passion, and they were networked, and you could just get a feel that they were going to add a different sort of contribution, and that really comes out. So one of the things we also do, by the way, in our process is you'll do the interviews, we'll then, if there's a glaring candidate that's not going to fit, they'll be released, and we then get it down to the final part where it's a presentation. And the presentation is meant to be a mock meeting, so we all take different roles: CIO, VP of sales, head of marketing, factory worker, doesn't matter. And what we're looking for is when you walk in the room, you're in character then, and you're given the coaching of being in character. And how people approach that exercise, they've got, don't get me wrong, some incredible experience. Some people come into that thinking, this is kind of a bit of a joke, and have a little bit of a laugh. And then some people walk in with the most incredible professionalism that just blows you. I mean, it really is incredible. And that energy and focus just stands out, and that's what I hire for. That's what I hire for, because I know that I'll get that when it transfers to the job. And I know that they're going to be going to the meetup groups, and I know that they'll go read a book, and I know that they'll be investing in their own brand, and they'll continue to hustle. Yes?
Hi, Elizabeth from Venezuela. My question is, what kind of Microsoft do to maintain the balanced life of their employees and make them be engaged with the company and the missions that they have every day, and make them be happy with the company and say great, the day is hard, we'll be better?
Right, great question. So it was really a question around what does Microsoft do around work-life balance. So on PO, again, one of the things that I'm measured on is what they call WHI, Work Health Index. So Work Health Index is, typically a regular contracted hour is 40 hours a week for full time, but the reality is people work a lot more than that, right? Because they want to. Sometimes, clearly they're more, I know I certainly do. But in terms of a balance, a work-life balance, again, coming back to the sort of feedback question, I really let my team work their own schedule. So I know what we have to get done. What I leave up to them is the how. How are you going to get there? How are you going to do it? And if that means that we run a university hackathon for a weekend where people work basically the entire weekend solid, the work-life balance part is that, Don't expect to see you online Monday, Tuesday, maybe a bit of Wednesday. I know you've got some skills development. And I let them balance that out themselves. I don't say, well, hang on a second, it's a Monday to Friday business, and when I want to see you online at 5 o'clock on Friday. I don't work like that. The reality is, if I decide not to work on Thursday, I know that I've got some stuff that I need to catch up on Sunday. We're unable to do that. We just do it. And in fact, in the workplace in general, depending on the industry, and depending obviously on your role, that's pretty commonplace now. In fact, telecommuting and that sort of good work-life balance stuff, it's pretty commonplace now. I think the other key thing is personal development. A big part of what people feel really balanced about is their ability to continue to improve their own skills. And we have a huge amount of training resource internally, as well as online. So for anyone in a technical field, things like Microsoft Virtual Academy or Channel 9. So if you go to msdn.channel9.microsoft.com, I think it is, tons of free resource, and it's important for people to feel they've got a balance between their own development, what they do for work, and downtime. You got a question?
Hi, I'm Carmen from
Hi.
I was wondering, when you look at the millennial generation, entering the workforce now, grappling, how is the strategy going to adapt and maybe manage or disable the disadvantages of the traits on the millennial generation?
All right, so the question was around millennials in the workforce and how do traditional corporate environments adapt to that. I think the major corporations are both excited, genuinely excited to have millennials in the workplace, but I think also trying to wrap their head around how to change kind of traditional corporate structure to fit in with your needs. So, for example, work-life balance. I don't want to work on Fridays. I'll work on Sundays, or you know what? I'll work 40 hours during the Monday through Thursday window frame. I think organisations have adapted human resource policy to fit with that. So I think, and I can tell you certainly within Microsoft, we've done things like, for example, there used to be a policy that we would have where you needed to be in role for at least 2 years. Then you had to discuss with your manager if you wanted to apply for a new position, then seek permission, basically, to interview, right? And all of that was scrapped probably about a year ago. And the reason being was, if I look at my MTC tenure, I was at that role for 18 months, and then I had a shot at this role, and I really wanted to do this role. And that policy change enabled me to do that. The other thing also is, I mean, I don't know, role-wise, you don't expect to be in a job for 5 years, right? I mean, if you do that, that's great, but the reality is you want to change your experiences in role to fit with where you want to go in life, right? And I think that's what organisations are adapting to. There's genuine excitement to have millennials in the workforce. I mean, people are really buzzed about it, but equally, another saying I've got, to whom much is given, much is expected. Make sure your value prop that you bring to a company is just off the charts brilliant, because people really are looking for some good new stuff coming out, you know, in terms of how you learn, teach, adapt, work. And there's just a huge amount of opportunity, particularly in this city. I mean, Boston's just crazy right now, it's great. Oh, of course.
Sorry, but could you mention some of the strategies you're going to apply to the negative traits of the millennial?
Well, tell me a negative trait of a millennial. I'll put it back on you.
I'm always told that our generation is still, has a sense of entitlement and all that sort of stuff. I don't know, I can't judge. I'm part of that generation, but is that something that is visible to you?
So, are millennials entitled? I don't think so. I think No, I'm not going to hold you to it. I think you've got high expectations of what you want to do career-wise. Let me put it like that. I think what you've got to expect is, I said earlier on, to whom much is given, much is expected. You're going to give a lot to wherever you're going to go. If it's a startup, if it's a research program, if it's a, corporation. And in return for that, there is an inference that you will get a lot from it. Because otherwise, why are you doing that? It's not just for a paycheck, you want more than that. So I wouldn't see it as, these guys are all high maintenance. Far from it. I think you've got the work balance transaction now is different. When I first started working at the DSS, that mailroom place, You know, if I walked in and said, yeah, actually, Friday I think I'll just peel off and, you know, okay, that's great, clear off and get lost. That would have been the response. I'd have been fired. But over the course of time, guess what? The whole world has evolved. So I think you just, you know, just take a pause. And when I said about being empathetic, be empathetic with the sort of employer that you're looking for. Because I'll tell you, you are interviewing your employer as much as they are interviewing you. Bear that in mind. And do not settle for a job you're not going to be jazzed about. Do not do it, because when you go back to the gentleman that asked the question earlier on around experience, you're going to be there to tell the story about why you went to company A. And if you didn't have a good experience, boy, you wasted your time. Because you're not really going to have anything exciting to kind of tell. And you need something exciting to tell. Because you've worked hard for it, right? I think the answer was fun. Right? I mean, really? Yeah, of course you have. Right, we've got time for one more.
Just one more.
Yeah.
So following up to what Carmen was saying about this millennial and how we rotate and having different roles and different things we want to see, how do you as a manager enhance this rotation of your team and change the personnel you're working with?
Great question. All right, so it's all around, you know, how do you mix it up at work to make sure there's enough experience that they feel jazzed about what's going on job-wise. What I've recently done is look at how people actually plan their work and work their plan. That's another big saying that I have. Plan your work and work your plan. On a Monday morning, how you're planning your week. And part of the one-to-ones that I have, I just check in with them on that. Hey, what you got going on, which communities you're going to see this week. Because one of the things I do cover is I've got 34 universities I look after, probably 75 different community meetup groups that I look after and interact with. And what I'm looking for is, are you doing the same old? Because if you are, that's a flag, right? And the reality is, if they don't see that as a flag, I want to highlight it as some pause for thought. In other words, don't get in a rut. Right? Don't go to the same virtual reality meetup group because you specialise in VR and you can see the same people all the time. Mix it up. So I do some of that. I also, when opportunities come up within Microsoft for what we call first-party events, so these are big events where we'll be presenting in the Javits Center in New York or the Meet Space. I get them exposed to that. So I get them in environments where they can go talk to different audiences, different crowds, learn some new skills. Internet of Things is obviously colossal right now. I don't know if you're familiar with that phrase or not, but basically IoT is a growth space right now that a lot of my team are wrapping their head around in terms of data translation. So I try to give them new challenges. What I've got to be careful about is how I balance like I said earlier on, about pushing them to that versus inviting them to take a look at it. But the other thing is that I run a business. So there's a little bit of, I have to push a little bit, but I've also not got to get them to a point where they frankly feel overwhelmed and become disinterested. So it's a fine balance, but just new experiences. But I also, the last thing I'll leave you with is this. Nobody in your company is going to be sweating the night around how your personal career is going to develop. Like I had to dig myself out. You've got to make sure that your brand is everything. So be careful about what you put online because we look at it. Right, so when we hire, we'll look at online profiles. We'll sift through, Twitter accounts and stuff like that because we want a fair representation of who it is that we're actually going to have a conversation with. So what I would tell you is the devil's in the detail and everything counts. And that includes your personal development, how you represent yourself as a brand, the sorts of experiences you've got, the job that you go and pick up, everything. So just make sure it all counts. Right? Great, thanks.